Welcome everyone, it's great to be talking to you from Creme Global in Dublin, and I'm here today to talk to you about how to get leadership and organizational buy-in for data collection, aggregation, analytics and sharing projects. So in this talk we're going to go through a number of things, and first of all I'm going to talk about the 10 opportunities of aggregated data. So there's great potential in aggregating, structuring and providing analytics within your organization. And then we'll talk about briefly how you might have to address some objections to data analytics projects to get them off the ground, and then some more actions to secure buy-in from your leadership team and the broader team. And finally, we'll finish up with three big benefits that we're seeing for industry in the food sector from data sharing projects. So the food safety and food production system is complex. If you think about it from the agricultural production right through to processing, packaging, logistics, retail and consumption, there's so much data that gets generated along that journey. And using that data can really enhance the operational efficiency, the production, the quality and the safety of your food. And even considering sharing data within your peers and organizations at the same stage of your production process can really develop huge insights. And properly structured and digitized data can produce great transparency and help you identify opportunities and risks in your supply chain. So once you have your data structured and collected, the real benefit then can arise from using predictive analytics and using that data to make better decisions. You know, there's lots of great processes in food production that have been working well for years, but those can be enhanced by new data and predictive analytics capabilities. Layering those capabilities on top of your traditional processes really can enhance the supply chain and food safety and quality of your system. So let's start with the 10 opportunities of aggregated and shared data. Starting with number 1, early detection and enhanced risk identification and mitigation. Once you start getting your data organized, you can then bring it to the forefront of your operations in real time through simple visualizations and dashboards that can help you identify risks in real time, and even furthermore with predictive analytics actually predict risks in the short term to medium term future and help you avoid those risks. Secondly, this is an interesting one. Once your industry or your company has started to gather data, obviously that can be used for monitoring compliance and making adjustments, but having high quality data available to you as an industry group or as a company can really help you influence regulation and advocate for better processes within your industry. Because you have the right data, you can actually make a stronger case for what you need to do as an industry to make your industry better, make your food safety, and discuss issues on a equal basis with regulators. Having data can help you increase operational efficiency within your organization. You'll spot opportunities to streamline processes and optimize resources, and that data transparency will highlight those opportunities readily within your organization. These will lead to cost savings where you can reduce waste, avoid recalls, which is hugely wasteful in terms of production and safety, and associated reputational damage. So huge cost savings can be achieved from data collection, structuring and analytics. This one is important in the world of data. We're in the digital age now, and consumers expect data. Partners, stakeholders, regulators all expect data and transparency. And when you can gather and structure data and share it in a structured way that helps you illustrate the benefits of the work you're doing, it can really enhance the trust and brand reputation and reduce potential reputational risk of your organization. It shows you're doing the right thing, you're showing the right data, and you're showing that you're doing your best to implement the processes that are required. On to number 6, benchmarking your organization across the industry is a huge benefit of data collection, aggregation and sharing within your industry group. It helps you understand where your organization is doing well and where you can improve. So that benchmarking and decision making around your own organization can be hugely beneficial when you start structuring and sharing data with your peers. When you have data, and this one is interesting on number 7 on innovation and continuous improvement. When you put data in place across your production chain becomes like an R&D facility where you can understand the cause and effect of different changes within your environment. So now all of this production data can be used for continuous learning and collaborative innovation and R&D within your own organization. And it's a lot more cost effective than doing R&D in a lab. Number 8, if a crisis does occur within your organization, for whatever reason, you have the trusted data that you've been collecting for years to help mitigate that reputation or problem within your stakeholders and with regulators. So having that data at your fingertips can help you respond rapidly and make better decisions and get back to business quicker because you've got that foundation of good data and trust built up by sharing data and structuring it in the first place. You can enhance your supply chain coordination. We know a lot of companies in the manufacturing environment have really optimized their supply chain over many years now, and it's a huge competitive advantage. So using data is the only way to do this, that you can understand inventory, supply and demand, and make better forecasts to make your operations more coordinated and more synchronized. And all of this leads to competitive advantage for your organization. It can help you position your company as a leader in data, help you optimize your operations, build trust, build brand reputation, and produce higher quality and better product and a safer product for the consumer. So those are the 10 opportunities of data structuring, data aggregation, data sharing, and analytics. Let me summarize those. So by embracing this data sharing opportunity, your organization can unlock numerous opportunities that lead to improved safety, efficiency, and trust in your sector and in your company. These benefits not only help you, but elevate the whole sector and help the industry as a whole to enhance its business. So let's move on now to common objections and how you can address those to get your data initiatives off the ground. Number 1, leaders can be skeptical about the effectiveness of predictive analytics. Often they think they know the business well, they don't need predictive analytics, they don't need data, they already know everything they need to know, and they're skeptical about a potential black box and whether those predictions can be trusted. So the solution to this is to use case studies to educate leadership about the benefits and successes of other predictive analytics projects in food safety and in the food sector. Use examples and start with simple visualizations of data that everyone can understand. If they can understand these dashboards that you've created and it resonates with their existing understanding of their business, then they start to see, oh, that data is showing me exactly what I thought was happening, and their intuition helps them to gain confidence in the data projects that you're building on. We have many great examples to that. Often starting with visualizations of the data helps get leadership buy-in because they start to see something concrete that they can trust before you get to predictive analytics. And number 2 is that data privacy and security concerns. Leadership or organizations may fear that, structuring and sharing data even within departments or between departments in our organization can lead to potential issues from competitive disadvantages or regulatory issues or privacy issues. So what we've done to help overcome this hurdle is to implement robust data anonymization and legal frameworks to help protect shared data. We've set up examples of data trusts like the Fin project in the UK, which uses legal privilege and secure data anonymization systems to share data around food fraud and authenticity concerns amongst 80 companies without compromising any privacy or any anonymity in the project. And that has built huge trust between the consortium and huge success from the outcomes from that data. Number 3, budget constraints. How much is this going to cost and what's the return on investment going to be? Is it going to be cost prohibitive? This is always a challenge that you can overcome by setting up data sharing initiatives that actually share costs of deploying these cutting edge data solutions for your whole sector. So your company can share in the cost of that, and it will cost a fraction of what it would have cost otherwise. And the other benefit is you're getting all the benefit for your company of the analytics, but also getting to benchmark against the whole industry. So there's a number of benefits for collaborating and sharing these costs and opportunities of data sharing across the sector. Highlight the potential costs of not investing. What about getting left behind if all the rest of the industry is moving forward with these initiatives? You'll be at a competitive disadvantage, so the cost of not participating can outweigh the cost of getting involved. And finally, number 4, simple resistance to change. Organizations already have processes in place that are successful and they're working. If you want to layer a data initiative on top of that, how can they facilitate the change management that's needed? Well, ensure training and support are provided to ease the adoption of these new data practices. Make the data visual, make it available to people so they can see it on dashboards in their day-to-day operations, so it becomes part of their workflow. They'll start to rely on those data visualizations in the decisions they're making. Try and implement quick wins and improved outcomes for many people across the different workflows in your organization. The rate of change in technology is changing and companies do have to keep up, so encourage them to keep going. So we've looked at the opportunities of data sharing, data aggregation and analytics. We've looked at how to deal with some of the common objections, and now we have a potential project up and running. So we want to secure buy-in from the team to make sure that project is successful. So what I always like to start with is a very clear vision statement that illustrates the future goal of the project. Write that vision statement down and share it with the team. Create a clear value proposition for that project that also aligns with your organization's key goals. Then a strategy can be formed which brings those benefits of data sharing to the fore and always moves towards that North Star, the vision you have for your project. Ensure that the strategy and the progress is communicated early and often to all stakeholders. They should be almost bored of hearing you talk about the project. If you're bored about talking about it, that means you've probably spoken about it enough, so people are starting to absorb the information. Secondly, you need to put a strong team in place, hopefully with strong connections to the leadership of the organization or sponsorship from the leadership. So this team needs the diverse skills to manage the data initiative and bring it forward. Those skills can be scientific knowledge about the data, operational knowledge about production systems and the logistics, business input, and obviously data engineering and data analytics expertise. So this is a multidisciplinary team. Empower that team to make this project a success. They're responsible now for engaging with that wider community in your organization, and they need to champion this data project and a data-first culture in the organization. Third point is to start small and scale. Take a lean approach. Start with some quick wins and try and get some value early in the project. Often this is through visual analytics, simple dashboards. Engage with people to get feedback on those dashboards, implement them, share them and make them available within the organization. And then move on to more powerful analytics and predictive analytics once that initial quick win and people start to build faith and confidence. Scale up the initiative from the learnings and the feedback you get in the early stage of the pilots. As the success grows, you want to foster that data-driven culture more broadly in your organization. So this team we put together is promoting the culture, and they need to, as a leadership in your organization, also needs to try to help foster that data-driven culture. Once you have those data charts, those data visualizations, that'll come more naturally. People will start to rely on that data and those KPIs to make decisions. Encourage continuous learning and development in data analytics and data interpretation across the organization, and recognize and reward successes. We live in a digital age. Your organization should embrace it. You need to continuously engage and educate the leadership using these visualizations and dashboards on the journey, show the progress is made, continue to make sure that you can retain their sponsorship and faith in the project. Regularly update them on the project and any successes of the initiatives to date, such as cost savings or efficiency gains. Highlight the competitive advantage that your organization is gaining through this data sharing project. Don't neglect that part of the data initiative to really think about what wins we've had, what successes, and how we can share that knowledge internally. Once you've firmed up on your internal data structures and data organizations, you can consider collaborating with other external partners like peers in your industry, clients, stakeholders, customers, suppliers. Start to share data or to consider what the benefits of sharing data would be. Talk to industry groups, trade associations, and even regulators to share data and insights. Consider forming a formal data governance committee or project and set up a data sharing agreement where you can share anonymized data and all benefit from those insights. You can work with that committee then to get feedback and scientific input, agree on terminology, a data dictionary, for example, and data structures, and move the project forward towards that vision that we talked about at the start. Finally, it's very important, and maybe this should have been the first point, is to choose an appropriate and a really capable technology provider. First point I'd make about a technology provider is that the data privacy and ownership policies should protect your ownership of your data. The data shouldn't be used for or resold by that data partner, and that should all be agreed that the only use of the data should be within the requirements of your project. Furthermore, the data provider has to have that secure data engineering and data platform capability to secure your data, anonymize it, visualize it, and bring it down to the final point of predictive analytics. The team within that technology partner should be experienced at collaborating on these types of projects to bring them from initial pilot right through to end-to-end system success. We'll be delighted to talk to you about all of those things and how Creme Global can provide that capability and that partnership to make your project a success. So now we'll move on to the final part of the talk, which are the top benefits we've seen for organizations, the top 3 big ones that we've learned over the years that really have a huge impact on organizations of implementing these data strategies and these data projects. So number 1 is trust and brand reputation. The importance of these data projects in building transparency and trust for your organization, it cannot be underestimated. In an era where regulators, buyers, consumers demand more transparency and more understanding of the processes that make sure that the product is safe, of quality, and has the right aspects that they require. So this kind of data collection, showing that you've been doing the right thing and how you're producing and sharing information, is hugely valuable to your brand reputation and trust of your organization. Secondly, regulatory influence. As your own company or as an industry group, having this data and having anonymized and shared it and structured it provides you with a strong basis for any discussion or challenges you may have on a regulatory front. It gives you the data to back up your arguments and make a case for better policies that make food safer and your production higher quality into the future. Predictive analytics on top of that can provide early warnings and help reduce regulatory burden by avoiding problems in the first place. Finally, a big one, data sharing can enable commerce. So building those data trusts between your organization and your partners and import regulators and exports and all of that carry on can build trust and streamline commerce and make things more efficient. It can reduce the regulatory burden, helping you get back to work and keep focusing on the production that you need to do. Real-time data monitoring can also help optimize production, scheduling, reduce downtime, ultimate saving costs, so enabling your business to be successful. So those are the top 3 big benefits we've seen. So in summary, securing leadership and organizational buy-in for data sharing in the food sector and food safety in particular is a process that you need to go into with your eyes open. You need to have that vision, you need to align with your organizational benefits, you need to build that culture, build a team, get the right partners. But the benefits of doing that, as we discussed today, are huge. There's many opportunities and many benefits to be gained from doing it. By setting that vision, demonstrating the value of predictive analytics, ensuring data security, managing budget constraints and showing success and working through the project in a lean and efficient way, you can really enhance the reputation and the quality of your organization and ultimately enhance food safety and protect consumers. And by embracing data collection, aggregation and predictive analytics, the food industry is moving towards a future where food safety is proactively managed using data, reputational risks are mitigated and consumer trust is strengthened. So that's my summary of how to get organizational buy-in and leadership buy-in to data projects, right from data structuring, aggregation, sharing, and right through to predictive analytics. So thanks very much for your time, and I believe we could take some questions now. And I'm joined by our Director of Global Accounts, James Doyle, who's going to sit in for questions. So thanks, James. And please add your questions into the Q&A box. I'll give you a minute. And while we're waiting for questions, I have a question for you, James. So James manages a number of our key global accounts and is very familiar with setting up and managing data sharing projects. So it's great to have you here, James.
Thank you very much. Happy Halloween.
Oh, and to you too, and to all our listeners. So I'd like to kick off with a question I have for you while we're waiting for questions. So please send them in. Why is data sharing so important now?
Maybe now is the critical word, but if we take data sharing at its core and maybe keep it food as the example industry sector, it's a global industry, global supply chain, and it has to work 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, and feed the world, all alongside of a bunch of emerging risks. And so it's under severe pressure as an industry. And so the quickest way to uplift and bring knowledge to that sector on emerging risks dynamically is to share data, is to source other data sets and add that as a valuable tool in the toolbox of food safety risk assessors or managers or whoever it may be. And there is no quicker way to give adaptive intelligence to these people who are trying to do the best at the job, but under severe pressure in that dynamic environment.
Under regulatory pressure.
Yeah,
they need to maintain trust.
Yeah,
have this data at their fingertips. Why not organize it?
Exactly. And then when you start to layer it with things like that, such as changing regulatory landscape, or the interface between different regulatory bodies, be it country-wise or whatever, the expectation to get it right all the time, or the ability to get it right all the time, is far more challenging. You need to have these tools available to you. What you need to have, though, critically, is that they're presented in a way that you can get rapid insights. The worst thing you can do is provide more noise or confusion. And we see that across the board. Confusion leads to errors, leads to food safety issues. We see it the same on the fraud side. Confusion actually leads to the ability for fraudsters to gain traction.
Very good, and we might come back to that project. I know you're very familiar with the FIN project, so we might discuss that. We have a question in from
Ashwani, thank you very much, from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. This is a technical one. Given the low prevalence of hazards in food, which ML methods do you use or suggest for predictive modeling? You want to have a go at that?
Well, our approach often is before you get to the point of talking about modeling, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and there's a huge amount of insights in actually sharing data and actually just finding even the gaps in the data in the first place. And so
visualize the data.
There's a huge amount. I've said this many times before. Apologies if people have heard me say this, but putting data in a visual format, there's a huge amount to be said for the expert eye.
Mm-hmm.
And when you gather data and share data together, actually, one of the first things that may emerge is gaps in that data. And a data gap could be a knowledge gap. And what we can do is provide some sort of insight as to how impactful that gap would be. So often, maybe I'm not avoiding the question before you get to sort of the top of the pyramid where you're doing some of the cool stuff with different models and understanding maybe interdependencies or codependencies between data sets, and looking to provide more accuracy and precision as an output. Getting that data house in order through data sharing and understanding where your gaps are is crucial.
So, like as Ashwani mentioned, there's very low prevalence hazard. So my view is you try to get as many different sources of information that you can get. It could be information on inspections, it could be sampling in water, it could be sampling the product at different stages along the journey, from agriculture to processing to supply chain to retail. So you're gathering all of this data and you're trying to find a signal within that data to make a prediction. So once you have the data organized and structured in a good way, I think you then try a number of machine learning methods and see what seems to pick up a signal or what converges. So I know we've used many different versions in-house here in Creme Global. If Will was here, he'd tell you about LSTM and all sorts of other methods, random forests and all of this.
Exactly, cross-validation, all these
so many,
and often we do some random forest, maybe a sequence of decision making systems. We also stack our models and run various as part of that training, that 80-20 training testing approach. So we do try to narrow the case of the models in the first place. But the best thing is we often try 3-4 stacked boost
stacked regressors and things like that. So maybe we'll follow up, Ashwani, with some more information, but that's as good as we can do on the spot here. So thanks, James. And there's another question coming in here from Igor. And he's asking, are there any chance you can cover some success cases from the past where when sharing data in the proposed way brought a tangible benefit or business benefit? So we have a few good ones there. So do you want to try and cover one or two of your ones, James?
Yeah, so I guess what we can do is maybe share some people who are on various different stages of the data sharing journey. And maybe that's one thing to note. This is a journey. It's probably a never-ending journey. So maybe the first one I'd talk about would be FIN, so the Food Industry Intelligence Network. It's all around food authenticity, food fraud at the core. It came out of the horse meat issue that was 2013. As part of that, the UK government it was in around the UK. The UK government commissioned a report called the Elliott Report. So Professor Chris Elliott, who's well known in this area globally, wrote this report. And one of the pillars of the report was industry should share knowledge and data, right? And so FIN became the phoenix from the flame of that network. And so
a bit of how it works, how does FIN work?
So on a quarterly basis, there are a series of members. There are nearly 70 member companies, and so this goes from Nestle, Unilever to Mondelez and Mars. and loads of other companies, Tesco and so forth in between. They submit via an agreed template on a quarterly basis. There are a few sort of technical checks and measures that we put in, and some of these are built around providing security from a confidentiality point of view, such as having a submitter and approver within a company. So, so let's say if Creme Global were submitting, maybe I'm the submitter, but it would not go anywhere until you as the approver would review it.
Make sure it removes some identifying information, etc., from the data.
Exactly. Underpinning all of this is anonymity. So we even log in using randomized login details, credentials. It then actually goes to underpinning FIN is what is the core of a data trust. So data trust is comprised of two elements, which is the technical infrastructure to help share data, and a legal governance structure around that. And so there's a law firm called Evershed Sutherland who retain legal privilege for FIN, and the data flows also through Evershed Sutherland as well. So quarterly basis submissions. Actually, today is the end of Q3 2024 submissions. If there are any FIN people on the call,
send your data in.
Yeah, you've got about 2 hours. And then what we do is provide all that aggregated anonymized data in two main dashboards. So structurally, FIN have a technical steering committee and a board. So we provide one dashboard for them to review. And then each member gets their own dashboard to see the aggregated anonymized baseline. But what they can do then is upload their own data confidentially and compare themselves to the baseline. So for the first time, you can start to see, especially if it's a small company, maybe can't afford to do a ton of tests, they can start to see and box clever. What sort of testing should I be doing at what frequency? And what are the emerging risks that other people are seeing?
Brilliant. So, and fraud is very hard to detect, and it could be very isolated incidents in the supply chain. But once they share that information, everyone sees what's going on. A huge advantage.
Absolutely. And as someone in FIN said to me, we should never ignore any anomaly.
That's a good point. Yeah. They learned that the hard way.
Unfortunately, that's what we do, but this becomes a proactive toolbox.
So there's another one I'd like to mention, Igor. It's we have two more in the food sector: Western Growers, the Green Link, and FDA, the data trust that they're gathering a lot of data. But there's an interesting one on the fragrance industry that's run by Creme Global for RIFM, the Research Institute for Fragrance Materials in New Jersey. And they've been gathering fragrance use levels for over 15 years now through a data portal that we provide, a secure way for industry to share use levels of fragrances in all different cosmetics, personal care products, in household products from cleaning to candles that you plug in, and everything from shampoos to deodorant sprays, all of those. So a hugely successful project. We've gathered data on over 3,000 or up to 3,000 fragrance compounds now at this stage, assessed them for exposure using a large risk model that Creme Global has built in collaboration with RIFM, and that saved the industry an awful lot of time and money in terms of reduced animal testing. Literally hundreds of, if not thousands of essentially thousands of animals didn't need to go to testing, and saving hundreds of millions of dollars essentially. So very, very big success there over many years on the fragrance side, and it shows the power again of sharing data, quite sensitive information on formulations for these brands and big brands. So yeah, there's a couple of good examples.
Yeah, and look, there may be more, and maybe we can touch on them briefly, but like 15 years to have done that,
great
to
foresight to get that project up and running 15 years ago.
Yeah.
They reap the benefits now.
And as you said, there's loads of there's financial benefits, there's environmental sustainability benefits, but also what we're seeing when I'm talking to our customers, that consumers are demanding sort of data transparency or more data to understand what they're purchasing or what they're consuming. So it's there's pressure from all sides. I think companies now understand the asset that is their data. What they probably just some of them haven't done is taken the leap to understand how can I interconnect or interoperate between data sets within an organization and actually the value of moving outside. But I was talking to an organization about 2 months ago in the food safety space, and they didn't bring the concern was not confidentiality. Actually, from their point of view, food safety, non-competitive, people could go out and test my products anyway. They're on the shelf.
Your data's out there.
Your data, in a way, it is. So actually, there is no. This doesn't have to be deemed as confidential as maybe it once was, and that's a major shift as well.
That comes on to a question I see here. Another question coming in. I'll come back to that one again. Thank you. But this is a question we get all the time. Who owns the data once it's submitted to these data trusts, into these data aggregations projects? Who owns the data?
Well, so data governance is probably the key phrase here. From Creme Global side, the person and the organization who submitted the data owns the data for the lifetime that it's there. So, and this is why our structure, our platform is built over 20 years odd of
testing,
testing and talking,
and enhancing the platform for security and collaboration, really.
But also a minimal disruption to existing technology, so it's easily integrated into an existing platform or workplace. So that data governance ensures that the company continue to own the data. It is not monetized in any other way. And the key point there, I guess, is from the legal privilege we had with Finn, the anonymity that we bring to the party here in the aggregation is such that by the time people can view this data, for example, in an inside dashboard, the confidentiality aspect of it is gone.
And we've seen on a number of the big projects that we mentioned, like Finn, Riffum, and the Western Growers Greenlink, they all have a data governance committee or a scientific committee that oversees the project. And everybody signs up to the rules of engagement of how the data is going to be shared, who owns the data, what can and can't be done with the data. So I think that comes back to your definition of a data trust. There's two parts: the technology, and it's the governance or the agreement of how the data can and cannot be used. So ultimately, in all our projects, the ownership of the data is retained by the owner, the original owner, and they submit it for sharing under certain terms and conditions, and they get great benefits from that as an industry. But they can choose to remove that data at any time if they so wish. Hasn't happened.
No, which is great.
The projects I've seen, but it's their right. That's still their data throughout the project.
We just have a few minutes left. We got a 5-minute warning there.
Okay, well that's we've one more question coming through here, and Ashwani has come back. He's thanking us for the response, and he says if he can ask another question. What's your most common question or objectives you try to answer through predictive analytics? Do you focus on future events or focus on new emerging hazard combinations? So I always like to joke that predictions are hard, especially when they're about the future. But to some extent, we are trying to figure out what may happen in the short-term future with our predictive analytics. But other times, we're also trying to predict what's happening right now, or what may have already happened, but we couldn't know until we gathered the data, right?
Yeah. So maybe I'll try to be brief on this. So firstly, it's around a need. So from Finn, it's around authenticity in the supply chain and building assurance around that. So often when we're developing these data sharing platforms, that's part of the consultation, is to understand what is the need or needs. But also, if I bring in the FDA's food data sharing and food safety data sharing platform, that can have multiple values, and one could be from a capacity management, so sort of a HR approach, and to understand what are the emerging risks coming in the next X months, the next 12 months, and where do I position my resources, my monitoring and surveillance resources, to make sure we stay ahead of the curve, because these sort of sets combine those emerging risk triggers.
Yeah, there's certain trends you pick up in the data, and they can be predictive of the future, like in certain seasons, in certain regions, in certain commodities, there's certain heightened areas of risk. You can pick those up from the data. So yeah, we're trying to predict those, and machine learning methods are ideal for that once you've gathered enough data to train them and test them. So I think we'll wrap up with one final thought.
Yeah, we have 1 minute, I think.
Okay, thanks for that. What does the future hold in this space?
I would say, so some key points in inter-industry collaboration. I think people are now breaking down those barriers, and there is increased adoption and adoption of AI and machine learning tools, but there's a bit of uncertainty as to actually what do they mean and what value will they bring. Standards. I think that's going to be a key thing going forward. International standards that surpass borders.
Data structures, data templates, even that they require to be filled in.
Exactly.
And their standards, yeah.
Exactly.
Demand from consumers, increased requirements for sustainability, metrics around that, sharing that information.
Yeah, exactly. And people, I guess, we run the risk. We've never had so much data. We run the risk of being overwhelmed by it. Yeah. And so this is a way to put discipline on the tsunami of data that could be coming your way, so that we don't create more confusion.
I think that's a good place to leave it. I think we've gone through the benefits, the challenges, and the opportunities of data sharing for industry, and I think that's a great discussion, and thank you for your questions. Really appreciate that, and thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Bye.